Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the u3a radio podcast with me, Nick Bailey. It's our monthly look at national events and groups news from u3as around the country, which apart from our YouTube channel, is also available on various podcast platforms, including Apple, Google and Spotify. Over the next half an hour, we delve into our ancestry.
A lot of families have something that's been handed down through the generations. Often they're embellished, as you can imagine, over the years, but there's usually a grain of truth in it.
We find out how to win at quizzes.
It's absolutely clear that finding the answers is the easiest thing in the world. The only difficulty comes when you try and persuade your other 5 teammates that you're the one who's seen the path.
And we learn how to operate a drone.
In comparison to flying a model aeroplane, a drone is very, very easy. A drone really is a platform for a camera. That's the main message, really.
But first, I have the results of the Cook for the King competition, which was launched to celebrate the coronation. The judges of the contest were u3a members Beverly Jarvis, who is a published recipe writer, and Jacqueline Harriott, who has 40 years' experience as a teacher and vocational assessor in food and related studies. Val Dawson caught up with Beverly, who explained what the ground rules of the competition were.
We were both really fascinated by the criteria that was set. And actually, what it was the strength and originality of the dish, the fact that the recipes should showcase Britain of 2023. The recipes must reflect both environment and sustainability, whilst remembering the Commonwealth and, of course, the ever-increasing diversity of British cuisine. Each entrant was also asked to produce a photograph of their recipe, I suppose to prove they had actually made it. And as I've said, it wanted to be economical and, of course, fit for a king. Shall we talk a little bit about the fact that in 1952, sugar, butter, cheese, margarine, bacon, meat and tea were still being rationed? Spam fritters was a favourite. And of course, evaporated milk.
Oh, yes, with tinned fruit, I think.
Tinned fruit. I remember so well. Tinned peaches and evap for tea.
And spam is sort of making a comeback, isn't it?
I think so. I can't bear it, but I believe it's regaining popularity.
So back to the winning recipes then.
Well, the first one was a curry or pickling masala mutton curry, and the winner is a lady called Cartoon Noonan, and she comes from Richmond-on-Thames, u3a.
Right.
And then we have 2 runners-up. Shall we just talk a little bit about the winning recipe
first?
You
do, yeah.
It really, really did shine out to Jackie and I. And the interesting thing was that we both simultaneously said, well, my favourite is the masala mutton curry. And Jacqueline said, wow, that's my favourite too. And we didn't have any dispute between us over it. This was a very worthy winner for many, many reasons. It filled all the criteria, and the author had also discovered that mutton is not only a preferred meat of the British ethnic population, but it also happens to be a favourite meat of King Charles.
Oh.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
As Prince Charles a few years ago, he actually ran a campaign to promote mutton and encouraged farmers to keep their older animals to be sold as mutton. I, for one, actually love the sort of gamey flavour of slow-cooked mutton, particularly when it's with curried ingredients.
You do have to cook it for quite a few hours, don't you, to get the best?
Yes, it's a bit like stewed beef. You've got to cook it for a good couple of hours. But that's why I thought this recipe was so varied, tasty, delicious, as well as some exotic ingredients in there. but all the recipes, all the ingredients, are easy to come by, except for perhaps the mutton. I've just ordered some from the butcher, but it was no problem. And she's developed a recipe which will make a wonderful celebratory meal for 8 people. So what more could you want? And if I mention the 2 runners-up now,
Yes, please do.
in no particular order, the 2 runners-up are cheesy layered potatoes, fit for a king, and chia berries brekkie, which is a lovely recipe with chia berries, yogurt, very light and easily digestible. And I could just envisage that on King Charles' table on the morning of the coronation.
Beverly Jarvis. And as we've heard, the winner was Khatun Noonan from Richmond upon Thames, u3a, and Val asked her why she'd chosen mutton curry for her dish.
The brief that was given to me was that it has to be something that is close to the king, something to portray the New Britain, and something to do with Commonwealth. So I could have done any recipe that could have fitted those requirements. And I decided to do mutton because I remember when he was a prince, he was promoting. He had a campaign to promote mutton.
Mm-hmm.
And I also found out then that his favorite meat is mutton.
Ah.
And I think ethnic population in Britain, which is the New Britain, what people will call New Britain, we use more mutton than lamb because it is more affordable.
Mm.
It's a very gamey meat, and it can absorb lots of spices. So I decided to try and put in that recipe.
Well, it sounds absolutely lovely. Anyway, what apart from mutton, what else goes into this recipe?
Oh, okay. It is all pickling spices, so it will have black pepper, mustard, fenugreek, aniseed, coriander seeds, and cumin seeds. Those are the pickling spices.
The runners-up were Beverly Hopkins from North Norfolk u3a with her cheesy layered potatoes, fit for a king, and Mal Robinson from South East London u3a with her chia berries brekkie. Val asked Mal, first of all, why she chose a breakfast dish.
The king doesn't eat lunch, so I thought he's going to really need a good start to the day. So I chose breakfast, and it was like a chia-based cereal with some berries. Really simple, but really nutritious and slow energy release to keep him going till when he next ate. What was your recipe?
My recipe is cheesy layered potatoes, which again is a simple, straightforward, easily to assemble, reasonably priced recipe that my family just love. There's 6 of us, so it goes a long way if you make it a large one.
Yeah.
And I hope the king enjoys it as much as we do.
What made you though? What made you go into this? What sort of pushed you into it, really?
For me, yes, I suppose it was because I've only joined fairly recently, and the invite came through, as I say, with the enrolment process. But I enjoy cooking. I love cooking, and this recipe just sort of encapsulates everything about us as a family, and I just thought the king might enjoy it, and seemingly he might, as it was a winner.
So Mal, your reasons for choosing yours.
The king has a real interest in like sustainability and ethical things, and because of sort of the duchy range at Waitrose, a lot of it is organic.
Exactly.
That sort of interest, and I chose chia seeds because they're really healthy, really gluten-free. They keep you going because they're like slow release energy, and the one that I chose is a British one. It's a new British range. We don't normally get chia here. We get it from South America. It's like tiny little grains. So I thought he would appreciate that there's a company growing it in Essex So it's low food miles, and they don't use any pesticides. So it really kind of met that sustainability ethos that the king is interested in. And it's delicious.
Mel Robinson and Beverly Hopkins, the runners-up in the Cook for the King competition. And if you'd like to try out any of the recipes mentioned, including the pickling masala mutton curry from the winner Khatun Noonan, just go to our website at u3a.org.uk. Incidentally, Alex Connell from Vegetarian for Life has created a vegan alternative of Khatun's dish, the details of which are also on the website. I'm sure many U3A members are fans of Who Do You Think You Are, when celebrities are taken back through their family history. Tony Neobard of Hawkwell Village U3A has been a family historian for more than 40 years, beginning her researches when she was still a teenager. Inevitably, some family stories may be more fiction than fact, but she's been explaining to Joanne Watson why so many people are interested in discovering more about their background.
A lot of families have something that's been handed down through the generations. Often they're embellished, as you can imagine, over the years, but there's usually a grain of truth in it. And the story that I was handed down as a child was about some ancestor of mine, and I didn't know who it was, but I knew that he had been shipwrecked and that he was adrift at sea for 4 days and 4 nights in a little boat. And on board the boat were some rough sailors and a cabin boy. And the story was that after a few days of being at sea and having nothing to drink but seawater, they all became a bit addled. And one of these very nasty, rough sailors said that they were going to eat the cabin boy. And this brave, heroic ancestor of mine said, "If you touch that boy, I will tip up the boat and we'll all drown." And then one day I thought, well, why don't I see if I can actually get to the bottom of this story, find out anything more about it, who it related to. And I spoke to my dad, and he explained to me that he was told the story by his grandfather. So I knew at that point what side of the family it was on. But my dad's mum, my grandmother, had died many years ago, but she was the eldest child of about 12. And 2 of the younger sisters were still alive. And one of them told me a very bizarre story. And she told me it was actually a passenger ship. And she said it sank in the Bristol Channel. And I thought, well, this is very odd to be at sea for 4 days and 4 nights in the Bristol Channel. And she said it related to her grandfather. And she also said it happened on her birthday. And that was the first real fact I had, because that's the kind of thing people really remember. So I then had a sort of time frame. I did look up shipwrecks in the Bristol Channel, couldn't find anything that fitted. So I then went to visit the other great aunt, and she told me that it actually happened in the Bay of Biscay. And that made a bit more sense, and that it was called the SS London, a steamship. And with that, I was away, and I did find out indeed who was shipwrecked. He was on a small boat, but he wasn't for 4 days, 4 nights. It was actually 18 hours. But I also had the official inquiry report, which explained that they didn't have much water, but they did have bottles of rum and other alcohol. So I think if they were addled from anything, it was from drinking the alcohol rather than the seawater. And there was a cabin boy. However, I think that bit about them being hungry was probably a bit of an exaggeration, because they did have half hundredweight of ship's biscuits on board as well.
Now, I believe that you had another family member who, with the introduction of DNA testing, has brought a new dimension to family history. So explain about the rather nefarious deeds that he is accused of.
I recently decided I'd really get to grips with genetic genealogy. I had my first DNA test, I think, about 6 years ago, and I had this sort of mystery cluster of people that matched me and my father. Obviously, I've done my family history, and so after some real, again, detective work, I put it together, and I worked out that there had been a dodgy connection, so that my dad's grandfather, when he was born, they had lied on the birth certificate, and he was not the father. So I built the tree out for the mystery cluster, and the chap at the top of the tree, Septimus Swire, was an obstetrician and surgeon. And we don't know whether he helped my dad's great-grandmother get pregnant. This all happened in the Whitechapel area, and Septimus Swire is believed to be one of the major suspects to be Jack the Ripper. So that was a really, really big surprise to us. That's the exciting bit about family history. You follow the trail like a detective and you do not know where it's going to lead you.
One person said to me that at the start of COVID, because no one knew quite what was going to happen, they actually decided to write their life story down for their descendants, thinking that these days there are so few letters left, it's all emails and things like that, that if people aren't careful in 50 or 60 years' time, the nuances of their family history will have disappeared.
Absolutely. I sort of urge my family history group members that whenever they get a wet day or something, they don't know what to do with themselves, write just a paragraph about something that happened either in your life or something that you were told. So just a different aspect of your life or your parents' lives. So like, family celebrations you could remember, just something, just take a little topic, your school days, and just do a paragraph or two, because all of that will add together. I've been very fortunate to take in a great aunt, but she did that with her family, remembering what her parents did. And it's such a wonderful archive to have. And it makes it more manageable to sit down and write your whole life story. That's a big challenge. But a little paragraph or two about a subject is much more manageable, isn't it?
Do you think more and more people are actually looking at their family history now?
Yes, definitely. And across the age groups. And they're getting also attracted in doing a DNA test, getting their ethnicity. And it just starts to trigger something, I think. It is the most absorbing and fascinating hobby. It's even better than fishing. That's what I would say. I think the fishermen might disagree with me. And you never stop learning with it either. It just takes you into parts of history that no school history lesson could bring alive in the same way.
Tony Neobard with some fascinating family history. There are quite a few u3a groups that do photography, but Terry Ito from Market Harborough and Welland u3a, who for many years has been a model plane enthusiast, has now added drones as well. Peter Clift asked him if anyone can fly a drone.
That is possible. If you've got plenty of money, you can buy quite a sophisticated drone, or you can buy one that flies around the front room. But anybody can fly one. There are some licensing requirements when they get a bit more bigger and more expensive. In comparison to flying a model aeroplane, a drone is very, very easy. A drone really is a platform for a camera. That's the main message, really.
You control it. I've seen people with this little kind of box that they hold, and you control it from there. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Generally, the box either has a mobile phone as a screen or a built-in one, which is what I have mainly. And that relays the picture from the camera on the drone to the ground, so that when you're flying around, you don't have to look at the drone, although you should be able to see it all the time. You can see what the camera sees, and you can have then the option of taking a picture of whatever the camera sees or a video. And the quality of the images, because of the cameras, are phenomenal. They really are. They're absolutely stunning. So you get a fairly unique view of things that you just can't do with your feet firmly planted on the ground at a normal camera.
So how high can your drone go?
My drone legally can go 120 meters, so 100 feet. But in reality, it can, and this would break a civil aviation rule. It can do sort of 3,000-4,000 feet quite easily, and its range is probably 8 kilometers each way.
So you have to be very, very careful, I guess, apart from obviously flying into things like church towers and things like that.
Yeah. Normally, church tower versus drone loses. But yes, you do have to be careful. You can go anywhere you like. The only 3 things you can't fly over are obviously restricted airspace, so near airfields, nuclear installations, not too many of us have those around, and prisons. And again, I don't want to go anywhere near one of those. So that's it, really.
Really, common sense, and you can really fly almost anywhere.
But you're absolutely right. Common sense is the main thing. Not annoying people, respecting people's privacy. And I get a lot of people coming on while I'm flying, not the Mr. Angry, but very interested and quite fascinated with the view that you get.
Where have you taken your drone? Just locally, or have you been further afield?
Well, no, I intend to go to Greece, to Crete with it this year, the small one, the lightweight one. But locally, churches, windmills, town centres, anything really that's interesting. I've actually got a rather sad interest in weather vanes on the tops of churches. I've got a little bit of recollection, which is a bit embarrassing. But anyway, really, you want to go, And the actual flying of the drone is not to be feared. It's actually very, very easy to fly because of all the technology. And one nice feature that I like particularly is that if I go far away, I get a little bit lost. I think, I'd like my £1,000 drone back, in one piece. So I press a button called RTH, which is return to home. And well and behold, every time so far, touch wood, the thing shoots back and lands at my feet. So that's the best button I can think of at the moment.
Are you on your own, or do you have a group of you that go out?
I fly partly on my own, but the group has slowly sort of got bigger. We're about 8 or 9 flyers now. We've gone from monthly meetings, which are outside, to bi-weekly meetings. And the enthusiasm is so such.
You've got your group, your drone. So what are your plans for the future?
Well, one aspect that we didn't envisage was that as a drone group, obviously we're interested in the drones and mainly the photography, but other u3a groups as well are interested in our activity because we present the possibility of a different view of their activity. But we've been asked to do coverage of cycling. The historic building group are very interested in us. And so that's an aspect that we didn't plan, but it's quite a nice one because it gives us additional challenges and makes the drone that u3a bought for us much more usable by everybody.
I suppose like all things, it costs money. So, I mean, for the average, but I'm not talking about the great, huge commercial ones, but for the average person, I mean, how much can you buy a drone for these days?
Well, typically, the u3a here bought a second-hand Mini 2, and that cost £360. But with that, you get 3 batteries. It takes images like you wouldn't believe, has all the functions that the big drones have. But with that, also added advantages that you fly where you like. £360 is second-hand. It was virtually unused. Is a sort of a starting place. The latest drone I've just bought cost £2,500. But my wife's not here, so we're okay.
Terry Ito. Many u3as hold their own quizzes where members can exercise their little grey cells, but in one area the rivalry extends to a regional competition. Every year, Hartley-Wintney plays host to teams from southwest Surrey and North Hampshire, who gather to do battle. It's organised by Fleet u3a, and their chair, John Gawthorpe, explained to Joanne Watson the secret to successful quizzing.
It's absolutely clear that finding the answers is the easiest thing in the world. The only difficulty comes when you try and persuade your other 5 teammates that you're the one who's seen the path.
As a member of one of the teams here for the last few years, I know one of the incentives occurs at half-time.
Oh, the cream tea is legendary, and sporadic discussions break out as to whether you're from Devon and that tradition or Cornwall and that tradition, and the decision as to whether the cream goes on before the jam can take up most of the interval.
Now, I've always regarded it as being quite a friendly afternoon, but when it does come to marking, there's sometimes a few disputes.
Yes, the way I look at it is, firstly, the quizmaster is always right, particularly when he's wrong. And if you're one of those people who has discovered an error in the quizmaster's thinking, you are on the path to becoming a quizmaster yourself.
I started just after Christmas, odd hour here, there and everywhere, just reading books. listening to quizzes on the television, things like that. And it gradually comes together. I think I finished them about 2 weeks ago.
How good are you at answering questions?
Rubbish. I was looking at some of the ones I've written on the table round, and I can't answer them now. But I did at the time.
Oh, well, let's hope that the teams can fare a bit better then, Brian, eh?
Oh, well, they're much more intelligent than me, you know that.
Quizmaster Brian Proctor. Well, 11 teams filed in and started to fathom out the answers to rounds as varied as general knowledge, geography, indoor games and food and drink. I have to confess my team weren't doing too well, but we're still keen to see if they got any of the answers correct.
A screwdriver cocktail is comprised of vodka and orange juice. The malted wheat drink that had the slogan taller, stronger, sharper was Horlicks. The substances that make up proteins are amino acids, and the Toblerone logo has a bear on it.
So, at half-time we settled down for our cream tea, very efficiently distributed by the catering team, and it was time to find out the thoughts of the half-time leaders, Yateley.
Well, we're thinking that we ought to actually leave now that we're in the lead, because we probably won't be by the end.
What have you been good on? Well, you played your joker. How did that go?
It went really well. We got 18 points on our joker round.
Which round did you go for?
That's food and drink.
Well, how do you normally fare in this? Are you likely to win at the end, do you think?
No, not really. I think we'll probably
a long way to go from last year's result, and that was upwards.
So, half-time leaders, you're doing better than expected then?
Half-time leaders? Who are? No. Oh, well, we'll hang on to that.
Okay, jolly good.
Half-time leaders.
Well, Yateley might have been surprised, but the opposition were closing in. And there were more rounds to follow, about England, sport, though there was a slightly controversial answer in that, and general knowledge. But who did win?
In third place was Yateley. In second place was Milford. In first place is Fleet.
So well done, Fleet.
Thank you.
So a very nice cup there you've got, Carol. What was the secret of your success?
Having the right people around me.
And what was your best round?
Gosh, I don't know. Which was our best round, do you think?
Music round.
Oh, the music round,
because
yes.
we got them all right,
Oh, right.
surprisingly, because it's not our
we
strong suit.
didn't put our joker on it.
And it's pretty competitive by the sounds of it, this.
In October, we do our local quiz, and of the 18 times that we've had that quiz, I've been on the team 11 times. And Anne has been on it a fair few times as well.
I don't know exactly how many.
Congratulations anyway. We'll see you all next year, I should
Thank you very
imagine.
much.
That report by Joanne Watson, who refused to tell me where she came in the quiz, but was heard muttering at the end, "It's not the winning that counts, but the taking part." And if you like a challenge, the u3a National Short Story Competition is back for its 4th year. The theme for this year's competition is Decision or Decisions, and the deadline for entries is Monday the 26th of June. All the rules and regulations are on our website, where you can also find a form to submit your entry. Just go to u3a.org.uk. And that's it for this edition. My thanks to Peter Clift, Joanne Watson and Val Dawson for the interviews, and also to Ella Watts for producing the podcast. Until next time, this is Nick Bailey saying goodbye.